wears his Sunday best. Mother's tired, she needs a rest. The kids are playing up downstairs. Sister's sighing in her sleep. Brother's got a date to keep, he can't hang around. Io's house in the middle of our street. Io's house in the middle of our...
Isles House, episode Four Nations. Before we get into it, you know what you got to do. Follow us on Twitter. Follow me at EthanGSN. Follow Jack at IslesDen. Follow Rocco at Pizza Sports Guy. Follow producer Greeny at eGreenberg99 and the pod at Isles House. Subscribe. We're everywhere. iTunes, Audio Boom, Google Play, Stitcher Radio, Spotify. Subscribe, unsubscribe, resubscribe, rate us 5 stars. Leave us a kind review. Seriously, leave us a kind review and rate us those 5 stars. We appreciate the support that we've gotten thus far. We appreciate all of you. Thank you for listening. And we are off. All right, gentlemen, how are we going into the Four Nations break?
Excited to see these countries face off. And by the
Are
time
you
the
serious or are you being like facetious?
No, I'm serious. I actually love the
Okay.
Four Nations idea.
Yeah, I'm into it too. I'm excited to watch it. I think the guys are going to go hard. I've seen some people tweeting that they think it's kind of going to be more of an all-star game type thing. But I think because it's the first best on best in a bit where we see the NHL guys, I think we're going to see some fun games. It sucks
Me
that it's
too.
only 4 teams, but I think it'll be fun.
I was just going to say it should be the Six Nation face-off, but they'll still be good.
Yeah.
Well, I guess I'll be the grump of the bunch. I don't
Shocker.
care. Yeah, right. I
But do you like the regular Olympics, Ethan?
like not really. I don't
Come
know.
on, man. Yeah, you do.
But I mean, listen, in my younger days, any excuse to drink a domestic light beer and be rowdy and patriotic, absolutely. At this point, what do you want me to say? Like, I'm gonna watch like the finals. That's
Wait,
probably
but
it.
why? That's like as close you get to like a legit all-star game where the guys are trying.
That's the greatest midseason tournament any sport can have.
You
And
know
it's
what?
fun,
I
too,
guess I'm
because
just a
US
bigger.
is-
I'm a bigger Islander fan than I am an America fan. You know,
No, that's
sue
fair
me.
because,
Do you
I
Well,
think
grew
you're just
up with,
forgetting,
but-
man. Remember when Rick DiPietro played goalie for?
did he
for the-
did he get hurt?
Okay,
He got
great.
hurt in the
Remember-
skills competition.
I remember
when
that.
TJ
Did he
Oshie
get-
scored a zillion shootout goals? Yeah, okay, there's some epic moments for sure. But I think I'm just going to use this break to rejuvenate the hockey senses.
You're
And
in,
we'll see
you're
what
in the
happens.
mental Cancun for
I
the,
am.
for the couple
I am.
weeks.
If the Isles were in first place, you'd be all over this tournament. You would be so invested.
I'd be begging for Brock to stay healthy if that was the case more than anything, I
Yeah.
think.
Also true.
Yeah.
And I
Well-
still am for other reasons, but
A lot going on in Islanders world, regardless of Four Nations. I think we should just start off with a little insider edition.
let's do it.
Do we agree? Okay. So let's start. Should we start on the injury front before we get into Nelson?
Yeah, go ahead, because you weren't here
Patterson?
last week. So why don't you hit the injuries and then we'll hit all the other stuff.
Yeah, well, it finally got out that Barzell had a knee and a broken one. Here's where it gets interesting. I do not believe the public timeline to be legitimate. Shocker, surprise, Lou Lamoriello is lying. I think you got to put the pieces together on this one. One, again, it's very Lou and it's very Islanders to not be honest about time frames. Varlamov was 1 to 3 weeks, and I was told that's not going to be the case, and now it's even worse than what the worst case scenario is. I would be shocked if he was back before the end of the season, especially if they get so far out of it. So, lie number one. Mayfield, he was day-to-day with a groin. Day-to-day turned into not going on the road trip, turned into maybe after Four Nations. Who else were they not honest about? Those are the two that stick out. But Barzell, it's insanely rare for any of the big insiders to leak Islanders news, let alone injury news. And there's been much said about the relationship between Lou Lamoriello and Pierre LeBrun. This was leaked, and for a reason. Now, what that reason is, we can all speculate and throw around. this is not a 6 week timetable. Maybe it's like 6 weeks until he starts rehab. Like I would be shocked if there was any world in which he's even back if they make the playoffs. So the Barzell knee, we if we want to just take a pause there and toss that one around. I have my own theories as to why
What
Lou
are they?
would want that information out there. I think there's a few reasons. One is maybe it's to take a little bit of pressure off himself, where if these teams know for certain that Barzell's out for the year, they're going to be all over him. Give me Brock, give me Palmieri, give me Pajot. Hey, you want to move Anders Lee? Like, who else do you maybe want to move in a scenario in which let's just throw in the towel and blow it up, right? That may be reality, but Lou may not want that reality out there. The second is perhaps this is related to his negotiations with Vancouver, which Rocco will get into in a little bit, where if teams think Barzell's out for the year and everyone knows Lou is Lou, maybe he's a bit more desperate to make a run and he doesn't want that information out there. He wants them thinking Barzell LTIR, he'll come back for the playoffs. Lou wants to add a piece. He doesn't want to get taken advantage of in the event that he can land someone like Elias Pettersson. So again, that's just speculation on my part, but I can say with 99% certainty that the timeline that was given by Pierre LeBrun is not correct.
100% agree. And I think the first reason you gave is definitely what I was leaning on to, the not wanting the pressure of not even just from teams, but also, if you put out there Barzell is done for the year, the fan base also is going to start clamoring.
That's also true.
Get to selling. And I feel the same. I'm honestly, with what we know about Barzell, I'm in that boat too. How long can you fight it is my question. Even though they looked good, even though they went on a streak with all the island of misfit toys, as we say on this pod, how long can you just keep this up without your top guns?
Yeah, I agree. And there are very few scenarios in which I'm okay with buying for this deadline. Elias Pettersson, obviously, we'll
gotta
talk
be a
about him.
stud.
And a long-term stud where
Locked up.
okay, even if they don't make a deep run this year, next year, sure, they come back and Barzell's back and EP's here and Horvat's here and Lee's in the final year. Who knows? Maybe Nelson's back. But it makes it real tough. It's tough look for Lou to be buying if the public knows that Barzell's out for the year. So
Wait, so just so I understand, you're telling me this relationship of LeBron and Lou, that Lou leaked this intentionally?
100%.
I don't
Who was the last
understand.
insider? Who was the
You're
last
right.
insider to beat the Islanders under Lou to report an injury timeline? The
It
answer is
doesn't
me.
happen.
The
But
last thing I remember was when we almost got JT Miller. Remember Friedman came out with that, and then like minutes later, it felt like the deal was off.
yeah,
That was on draft night,
That was it was at
the
at
Romanov year.
draft
Yeah.
table. That was at the draft table.
Yes.
And that deal, Lou gets a bad rap for that, and people think, oh, it's public information now, and he's gonna just blow up the deal, and he's not gonna do it. That's not true.
You can't be
been-
that way anymore in 2025.
No, and there's also been plenty of leaks that people have heard about and found out, and it takes two to tango. Lou can be as buttoned up as he wants, but people are going to get information from other teams. So he gets a bad rap from that. But listen, he turned around and turned it into Romanov, and also when Bob McKenzie tweeted out Artemi Panarin, didn't wound up not happening. But
that was
again, it's
that was
super
Panarin's
rare.
agent that time, though, leveraging.
sure, but I'm
yeah.
just saying it's super rare that this stuff happens.
Yes.
And just to get like that Pierre LeBrun notification, oh, Barzell 6 weeks, when that's not true. So who told him?
And it's just also why would you want that out there? Of the two scenarios that you laid out, Ethan, I think it's the second scenario that makes the most
I think
sense.
so.
But even like the one thing that I play devil's advocate with myself when I'm thinking about it is like, if he is going through situation number 2, that's going to make Vancouver, right? That's going to give Vancouver way more leverage than they already have. Like, if they know that he's desperate, and whether or not Barzell's coming back this year or like he's going to be out for 6 weeks, the Islanders are still in trouble like this season. And other teams are fully aware of that, including Vancouver. I just think that that information going out there is not going to help the Islanders at all in any kind of negotiation. And lose smart.
Maybe, but if you're the Minnesota Wild and you approach Lou Lamoriello and say, Matt Barzell's done for the year, let's go, fork over Brock Nelson, and Lou says, actually, he's not. He's coming back in 6 weeks, and that's going to be justification enough for me to tell the fan base and tell whoever, tell ownership, hey, we're going to ride it out with these guys. We're going to try to stick around. And listen, if they make it without him, great. And if they fall further out of it, then they can claim, oh, well, we're just going to shut him down because there's no point. We want him to get healthy.
So then I think it's just more of a scenario of him using LeBron to tell the fan base that he's not selling because there's this, 1% chance that Barzell can come back in March.
Speaking of not selling, great segue by me. Should we talk Brock Nelson?
Yeah,
we have been told with 100% certainty, and this was before that. Who was it? Cam Robinson? What was his report?
Cam Robinson was the Pedersen stuff.
Oh, he was the Pedersen. So someone, it was Bada, I think, came out. Someone came out.
What did they say? And then I could
tell you
who it was.
You had it right. The Robinson said they pulled him off the trade market. If that's who you're talking.
That was Pedersen, but Nelson. What did someone say about Nelson that year?
No, it was Bada.
Okay, there you go. Classic. Bada making a claim that no contract had been offered to Brock Nelson. Chris Bada, by the way, who hasn't had an Islander source.
Did that too.
Okay, there you go. And Pagnotta. Okay. Two peas in a pod, guys. One guy who's never had an Islander source, and Bada, who hasn't had an Islander source in the building since probably the Bush administration. So it's when you look at the Brock Nelson, we've been told with 100% certainty over a week ago at this point, I think it is probably when you guys are listening on a Wednesday, that Brock was 100% offered a contract. What that contract is, I don't know. We can speculate. Rocco, if you had to give a guess.
3 years. 3 years was kind of confirmed.
Okay.
And on the money, again, we don't have exact terms. And the thing with this, there could be multiple versions of an offer, as we know. There could be a 3-year, there could be something else on the table, but we believe it's like a 3 by 6, 6.5. Ethan, I think we discussed that was about the number we
sounds
both
about
get.
right.
Yeah.
I mean, that sounds about right.
That's in my.
I think that's
question.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Have you guys heard of what like Brock's looking for, or like the projected term of his next deal?
I have not.
I will say though, on that, Jack, I will say, and people could argue this, and we don't know what's going to happen. I think if he was to hit the open market, I truly believe he'd get more term than that. I think it's going to be about if he truly wants to stay, because if you look at who's the pending UFAs right now, you have Rantanen, you have Marner, you have Ehlers, and then Brock might be the fourth forward. I don't have a list in front of me, but I'm assuming. And say 2 of those 4 stick with their teams, like Marner resigns with the Leafs, Rantanen stays with the Canes. If Brock's a top 2 forward on the market, you don't think there might be multiple teams bidding and they create a bidding war and he gets a couple more years? You don't think a contender?
I agree with you, but here's my question when it comes to Brock is how are teams going to view him? He's going to be 34 at the start of his next contract. And I think we all agree that when we're talking about him signing a 3 by 6, some contract like that, we are assuming, one, that is a secondary move to something bigger, and that it's no surprise. We've all seen Brock Nelson go through the highs and the lows being where he looks totally disinterested out there. It's no surprise to anyone that pays attention that his defense is bad, just straight up bad. He's a goal scorer at this point in his career. That's what he is. He's someone that you're going to want to bring in And at the high, probably he's going to pot 30. At the absolute low, he'll be 20 goals. And if he's someone who's going to be seeking a 4x6, a 4x7, I don't know if there's a team that's going to give that to him, because the team that he's going to want to go to and the team that's going to be pursuing him, in theory, is going to be a very good team, a contender, and will have a preset 1C, 2C, and you're not paying that to a 3C. So I think in pretty much every scenario, one in which he extends with the Islanders on a 3x6, or one where he even goes elsewhere and he extends for something comparable or maybe a bit longer term, I think at that point in his career, we're talking about a guy who is a protected top six scoring winger who is not relied on to play defense,
He
and
actually
he's a
will.
power
Wait,
play guy.
about this, he actually is playing on the PK for the Four Nations, and he's been playing the PK this season.
He
So
he
they might
has
think
been,
he has that to offer as well.
maybe, but that's, and listen, to his credit, good for him. That is a newer
I
development.
agree. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it
But
is what it is.
he was a good two-way forward when Barry was here.
No,
But
he
I guess
was.
that was,
Of
but I
course.
guess that was more so the
System?
style, exactly, and the system. I think this is just like a game of cat and mouse between Lou and Brock and his agent of like, do you think you can get more than what I'm giving you right now if you wait until July 1st? Or are you just going to take my offer because you think that you're not going to get as much on the open market?
Right.
So
And
one
I think,
thing,
go
ahead,
ahead,
Ethan.
Rocco. No, you go.
One thing I think on this Brock front too, and in my opinion, this is very fair, is he probably wants an idea of where the Islanders are headed. What's the next move? As Ethan said, is there a corresponding move, or is there going to be an attempt for more moves? Because at this point in his career, he probably wants to win, right? So I wouldn't be surprised if we start to, if he doesn't get re-signed soon, if we start to hear, yeah, he's probably going to test the open market because he wants to go to a winner. Like, I could see him reaching the open market, and maybe a Dallas who play in a tax-free state could give him a nice deal that's similar to the Isles but more valuable to him. I could see him going to a Colorado, a Winnipeg, a Minnesota. There's a lot of teams that could be out there for him. So I think there's more questions with Brock than just money. And I'll say that on the Nelson front because, it's very, very, very fair to question where the Islanders are headed. And when you're going to be a 34-year-old player come next season and you haven't won anything yet, doesn't that seem a little sweeter than maybe staying here and the team has a ton of question marks and you don't know what we look like next year?
Did you see what he had to say when he spoke to the media today?
Yeah, I was actually just going to bring up the Ethan Sears quote from Brock.
I
Can we
already
get
have
the
that
exact
up.
quote?
Yep, I have it up.
All right, go ahead, Greeny.
So this was from earlier. Ethan Sears asked Brock whether he wants to remain in New York. Brock said, quote, "I want what's best for me, my family, team, and everything. There's a lot of factors that go into it. I know everybody wants an answer right now. That's not how the world works. You don't always get what you want." Then he continues to say, "Everything will sort itself out. Lou's a great guy. I've loved playing for him. He's done a lot for me. He's given me a great opportunity the last 7 years I've had him. My agent has a great relationship with him and communicates with him."
This to me screams, I'm out of here. Personally, if I'm reading the tea leaves, I know a lot of people, Greeny, get ready to bleep it, want to compare it to the situation. I've done it myself weeks ago, where let's just wait and see how this plays out publicly. Now, bleep this. When he came out publicly and said, "I want to be here," that was obviously a lie. We know what happened. Brock being totally non-committal, to me, I feel like he's being honest. We know that he was offered the contract, and the first thing out of his mouth is, "I want what's best for me, my family, and team, and everything." So, to me, this is as simple gets. You've been offered a contract, take it or leave it. That's it. We know this past offseason that Lou Lamoriello pushed hard for Nikolai Ehlers. We know Rocco, I'm going to throw this one to you soon
Mhm.
about EP40, maybe
Right.
for a big package. And the cap's going to go up, and presumably we're going to have Nelson off the books, Palmieri off the books. You can probably get rid of one, if not both, of Pajot and Pollock if you needed to. They're going to have a lot of cap space to work with, even if they wanted to bring Brock back. Lou's dropping a bag on someone's desk. And I think Brock should know that at this point. So if he's questioning whether or not that there is Lou going to blow it up, is Lou going to go for it? He has the answers. Like he knows the direction of the team. He knows what's going to happen. And I would prefer for this not to drag out. Sign the contract or let us get some value.
Now,
I
Jack,
I
go ahead.
ha I have a prediction on this whole Nelson
Let's
thing,
hear
and
it.
I've been going back and forth on it because like I think I know what makes sense and what doesn't, but I don't like saying it. But my ultimate prediction is that this fan base is extremely unhappy, and that means one or two things. I don't think he's going to get traded. Um, we were beating this drum last year, actually, and I'll never forget this Elliot Friedman quote when he said that there was apparently trade noise around him, and he said, on the record, Lou Lamoriello would rather eat his left leg than trade Brock Nelson. That's what he heard
Great
around the
pull.
league when we were beating that drum last year. And my point is, so he's not going to get traded, right? And that means two things: either he walks or he extends. What I'm leaning towards here is I actually think he ends up staying, and I think he ends up staying at a cost. And the reason being is I think Lou values Nelson like very few players we've seen him value on this team. I think he's going to do everything in his power not to let him walk out the door, especially with the JT stuff. Even if he's not extended after the deadline, like I think he's going to push harder than you could imagine and offer him something that no other team's going to offer.
I think there's one factor playing off what you just said, Jack, that needs to be considered. Throw out the last two games before the break, at least one of which they should have won. Probably should have gotten a point against Winnipeg. Definitely should have won against Minnesota. But you throw out those two games, Islanders on a 7-game win streak, 7-1, 8, something crazy like that. For a veteran team with an emotional coach like Patrick Waugh to lose player after player to injury, some short term, some long term, some season ending, to fight through all that, and then to make your way to the trade deadline and sell Brock, let's just call it two of the three, Brock, Palmieri, and Pajot. I'm a fan. In my eyes, you want to get that future value. From a management and a coaching perspective, it is a slap in the face to the players who have battled this hard to say, I know you're only 4 points out. I know what you've done the last couple of years where you clinched by the skin of your teeth, but we don't care. We're throwing the season away because that's what they'll be doing. They're throwing the season away. Let's not sugarcoat it because there is no reinforcements coming from Bridgeport. I think Jeffries might still be hurt. Dufour's a head case. Maggio just flat out stinks. There's no help in the pipeline coming for these guys if you were to trade any of them. So we're looking at a team that loses their number two goalie. We don't know when Pollock's going to be back. He's got a shoulder, by the way. Barzell's probably done for the season. And then you're going to trade a third, if not two-thirds of your second line, maybe your 3C. It is entirely demoralizing. There is no coming back from that. I don't want to have any sort of false ambitions like we could be the Capitals of last year where we make a run and maybe we clinch. That's not happening if you sell any of these guys. And I don't know. I think that plays a big part, not just for the morale of the team, but I think it's something that ownership's going to pay attention to. The empty seats, the fan base being totally disengaged, season ticket renewals when they come up. It all, and it sucks because objectively, it is the wrong way to look at it. You should think about the future of the team and getting pieces. And I'm not saying this from a perspective like I agree that this is what should be done. I'm just saying you have to put yourself in Lou's shoes and the team's shoes for some of these transactions. And that's just how they operate sometimes. And it's unfortunate.
No, it's being romantic about hockey essentially, where they've worked so hard and have now gotten close, but it's balancing that with the asset management game, where if we hold on to Brock and we hold on to Palms and maybe we don't move JGP at a deadline when he might have his highest value because teams are desperate, you might lose out on a lot of futures, because I think most of us, if not all of us in here, would agree the only path to this team becoming a consistent contender is by an influx of some form of futures, whether they get it through draft picks, whether they acquire draft picks, then flip, whether they get prospects in deals, whichever way you want to go about it. I don't really see a path to prominence without that. Do you guys?
No. And that's what makes this so frustrating
Because we don't feel like they're going to do it.
Exactly. And no, finish your thought.
No, go ahead, Greeny.
I was just going to say, like, if we rewind a month ago, everything was more crystal clear, and it was like we
sell.
We were all accepting the reality at that point, and now they've put themselves in such a difficult situation because of how they've played. But like, I don't think you can have the mindset of, oh, well, it's going to be a slap in the face to these guys if we get rid of them. Like, they put themselves in that position in the first place with how they played the first 40 games of the year.
We went from Hagen's watch to EP40 watch to suicide watch all in the matter of a month.
Exactly.
But it's one of these things too. I agree. I totally get what Ethan was saying with it's a slap in the face to not give these guys a shot. But at the same time, when you look at this roster, it's not, I don't see it as like a Columbus where you have a Fantilli and other young guys that you want to get over the hump and give them playoff experience. We have a bunch of 30-year-olds that have been here for a while that do have playoff experience and weren't able to get over the hump.
They
had their shot. Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
And if we're being real right now, that was their window, and that window shut on that exact core. Could you always shake up a core and open up a new window? Yes. If you could go out and get an EP40 type, could you open up a new window? I think so. But it has to be some form of shakeup, because if you just decide, oh, we're going to keep Brock, maybe we'll just let Palms walk because his value is not great, and we'll hold on to JGP for a little longer, there's only so much you can do around that. So the asset management at this deadline is so crucial, because I feel like it could honestly make or break the next 2 to 3 years, not just next year.
So then let's discuss what you guys think is going to happen. How does this get resolved? Does it get resolved by the trade deadline? What do we think?
Just Brock, correct?
I guess we could start with Brock, but also like what's going on with JGP? Really just the direction. Are we going to declare a direction by the trade deadline one way or the other?
Jack.
I mean, I gave my part about Brock already.
Question for you though, Jack, on Brock. I know you said re-sign. What do you think that deal looks like?
I think that it's either going to end with him walking for free, or I think it's going to be disgusting.
When you say disgusting, what do you like? The terms too long?
4x7.
So
like a Stamkos type deal where he just.
I think it's going to be. I think it could be like what's the term that's like rumored right now? A 3-year extension for six and a half.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go like. I think I think it's going to hit a point where he's really trying to get him to stay, and he feels him 1 foot out the door. So like, I'm going to go from 3 to 5, or even somewhere from 5 to 6 years with at least the same AAV, maybe like 6.5 to 6.8.
I'd vomit.
That's what I think is going to happen, or he just walks. I don't think he's getting traded.
But my thing on the Brock situation, you cannot let him walk. Not for this team. If they were top 3 in the Metro, I'd accept it a bit. But you're on the outside looking in. And yes, they could jump back in before the deadline, but they would have what, Greeny? 5-6 games left?
I think it's only 6, yeah.
Yeah, people forget that because of Four Nations. It seems like the deadline's so far away, but there's only a handful of games. So even if they go 5, 6, whatever and 0, they're
So
probably still not in a playoff spot.
So I think Lou has a plan, a backup plan for this situation. I think if Nelson walks, I would expect like a corresponding trade or signing that he already has in the works, ready to go, to make it look like they're just replacing the 6 million, and like he probably is hoping they make the playoffs too. So like you can maybe, so in his eyes he can rationalize keeping him in the first place. Like we had no idea we were getting Siplikov last year. No idea. He was just working that behind the scenes. Like you don't know what he's doing. That's what's so hard.
That scenario would be a catastrophe,
It
an
would, but
absolute
I
catastrophe.
like you never know. Like there's guys out there that are open, that are on the market to trade, that maybe we don't know about, that he has a plan for, like right now in case Nelson walks out. But yeah, that's just how I sense it coming. I don't think we're going to see him traded. I really don't think so.
Now, Jack, what do you want him to stay, or you want what you think and what you want could be two different things. Do you want him to stay? Because I feel like you're the
Not
one
at
that
that.
wants him to stay.
No, not at that money. Like if at that money, I would trade him. But if it were up to me in a perfect world, if you asked me
Three by
this
six, 6.5. You want him to stay, or would you rather trade him?
3 by 6, I would probably keep him. And here's why. My answer to this has changed because in years past, like you look around the trade market and there's really guys there where you can trade for and they're younger. You just give up the assets you got from trading Brock. I don't see those same guys available at all right now. Like in terms of replacing him, I don't see where the replacement's coming from. I just don't. And at the end of the day, he's been here for a while. He contributes a lot of goals. Like he's a really big part of the team. So you need to replace that. I just don't see where it can come from. So I would sign him for the right deal, but at the same time, I'm not. I would stop it at. I would stop it at that offer that you mentioned before.
All right, Ethan, what you think happens and what you want to happen.
I think he's not walking for free. I really
pray to
don't.
God he doesn't.
I really don't. The reason I believe that is as much as Lou wants to win and Lou has respect for Brock, I think that respect is mutual. And I think that by the trade deadline, Lou will know whether or not Brock is not taking this to the offseason. He's either signing the extension or he's getting traded. So we'll know one way or the other by the deadline, but there is no way. There's no way. There's no way he walks for free.
What do you
It's not-
want
it's
to
not
happen?
happening.
What do you want?
What do I want to happen? Again, I said this on Twitter, but I would be okay with a 3 by 6, assuming that there was some monster conditional move that either happens this trade deadline or over the summer, like an EP40. I do not want Brock Nelson as my 2C next year. I would be much more comfortable splitting up Barzell and Horvat, 1C, 2C. I'd be more comfortable keeping them together and trading for EP40 and having him, run line 2. But the only scenario in which I'm okay with keeping Brock is Lou throws someone the bag, either in a trade or goes out in free agency and gets like a big fish.
Is there a scenario where he can bring back Brock, but then trade a Palmieri, or is that completely unrealistic?
Just don't think you're going to get anything for Palmieri. I mean, he's fallen off a cliff.
No, I think the question's more so like keep Nelson, but sell any other attractive piece you might have, or is it like if I'm keeping Nelson, I'm either acquiring people at the deadline or I'm hanging on to every single one of the UFAs?
No, I think it's going to be a situation for me where I'm going to be upset until the offseason. So I'm just going to be honest and upfront. I think we've covered Nelson quite enough. Now, before we do that, let's just do a quick little recap because everyone pat yourself on the back because I think we do quite a good job of covering this team, especially gaining insights and some scoops and news that other people may not. Just this podcast, we're talking about how we nailed Varlamov's injury, Barzell's injury, the Nelson contract, and I think the biggest one that we've been talking about over the last week, in which quite literally everything that a member of this podcast has been saying was verified by the number one NHL insider, Mr. Cottage himself, Elliot Friedman, the potential for an EP40 and Dobson trade. Rocco.
Yeah, so I'm trying to think back on the exact timeline, but so basically, Ethan, I don't want to take all the credit. Both of you and I were both very heavy on the EP
Sure.
Dobson stuff. We both kind of got wind of Dobson being available. Now, when we first got wind of Dobson being available, there was a lot of pushback. A lot of pushback, I would say. We're not. The Islanders aren't moving him. He's their franchise guy, this and that, yada,
I think
yada.
there's equal pushback on the other side of EP40 no longer being available after a JT Miller trade.
Right. So very quickly after the JT Miller trade, which was how long ago now? Approximately 2 weeks, let's say.
Yeah, call it that.
Okay. Yeah, 2 weeks or whenever it was. I did some digging. I talked to people I, feel very comfortable with asking these sort of questions. And they told me they're like, all these reports that EP's not out there anymore, this and that, not so true. And now people love to say, oh, well, so-and-so said this and so-and-so said that. What did we just say about Pierre, LeBrun, and Lou? There's a reason for leaks.
Yes.
And the reason from Vancouver's side to say he's not available anymore is the same, different scenario, but similar reasoning to you would maybe bend the truth on a Barzell injury. You want to maintain leverage. If they come out and say, yeah, we just traded half of the problem in our locker room and we're still going to move the other one, what does that do to EP's value? It's shot, especially after a Rantanen trade. I'm not saying they would get nothing, but when everyone knows he's out there, suddenly maybe a guy like Lou is saying, you know what, I'll give you Dobson, and that's the deal. Make it work with that. By saying he's unavailable and other people leaking, oh, now he's off the table, this and that, which I don't believe either, you maybe maintain a bit more leverage. Now, in regards to this deal, I think we all know it wasn't just Dobson for EP straight up. It was much more complex. There were other factors. Vancouver obviously wants some more, which is fair. But it also relies a lot on the Dobson situation if they were to get a deal done, right? What does Dobson's next deal look like? How do you even up the money? Does Dobson get 6? Does Dobson get 7? Does Dobson get 8? So very complicated. And from my knowledge, the Islanders were almost trying to even up the money based on what they think Dobson will get with a 6, 7, 8 year.
Right.
Throw some more money in. We want to get as close to that 11 mil hit that EP has and get something done. The reason being, even the biggest EP stands like Ethan and I can admit, it is risky because bit of an injury history. I'm not getting into what has gone on in Vancouver, what is continuing to go on and whatnot, but there is risk there with buying EP and trading young players for him. But I think we'd all agree this is a guy we would want. I do not think the deal is off the table by any means. I'm not saying it's happening today, tomorrow, next week. It may not happen at all. It may get kicked to the draft, but it was very much out there. We were very much on it, and we appreciate those who stood with us throughout.
Yes, and we'll read the exact transcript from 32 Thoughts confirming exactly what Rocco and I had been saying for a week now. But I do want to just point out it's not just to cover our asses, because the point of me calling out a few of the scoops that we've been correct on with this team because of how clandestine they can be with information is to show that we don't put things out there for bullshit. We don't put them out for engagement. Like, we're just a bunch of dudes who love the Islanders, and we love social media, and we love podcasting, and we love to have fun with it, and we love interacting with you guys. And we do what we do for pure love of the game. Like when we're in the off season reporting about how Lou is going hard on Ehlers, or that there's an offer on the table for Shane Pinto. Like, these are legitimate things that we're hearing, and there's of course, risk in putting it out there because when moves are that high priority, they don't always happen. And as a matter of fact, most of the time, they don't happen. So, I mean, listen, Rocco and I sort of teamed up on this one. I feel like Rocco definitely deserves a little bit more of the credit here. And again, it's just a little bit validation when, I don't know who wants to read it between Jack or Greeny, the exact Friedman transcript, but pretty much every single thing that Rocco had been saying for a full week was confirmed by Elliot Friedman in 32 Thoughts after numerous reporters, some reliable, some unreliable, came out and said that the rumors at EP40 and Noah Dobson deal, shopping, etc., what have you, was not correct. Turns out there was truth to it, a lot of it. So I'll throw it to Greeny or Jack.
Well, well, also before we get into that, for anyone doubting the sources from Ethan and Rocco, I think the simplest way to kind of understand how this is working is like a lot of these professional insiders, they hear a lot of things. They don't really talk about them until it's basically at the finish line.
I agree.
But but like they hear everything. Ethan and
Off the
Rocco
record stuff.
are just going to share what they hear. And some things have legs, some things fall apart. That's how it works. But the guys that are doing this for a living don't have that luxury. So keep that in mind.
It's also really obvious with Elliot Friedman, especially, that he has like, I don't know what it is between Lou and him specifically, but he hates divulging any Islander information. And the only time he does is when there's just enough noise to where he's like, all right, I got to address it.
100%.
You won't hear him do it like in any, like I watch all of these episodes and go through all of the transcripts. Like he does not bring it up until he absolutely has to. And he felt the need to here, which is a good sign.
He actually admitted that he doesn't know anything about the Islanders anymore.
Yeah.
When Lou first took over, he said on his podcast that like his couple of Islander sources actually sent him a text message and were like, sorry, but we can't talk to you anymore. So this is the last year to be hearing from me. That's the end of it. And he admitted that. And I mean, there's a reason he really hasn't had any scoops with this team in 7 years.
Well, I actually think he has things, but I don't think he shares them. And I think that he's close with Lou in some capacity. He was on the MSG telecast, I think, last season. There's definitely a relationship there. But anyway, I'm going to read the quote. Friedman said yesterday, I had heard about 6 weeks ago that Dobson's name had kind of been out there, and I just couldn't find anything. I didn't go anywhere with it because I wasn't sure that I was right. And especially with Lamoriello, you don't want to be wrong, so I didn't go anywhere. And then reports came out last week that his name was kind of out there. This is what I think. I don't think he's generally been out there. There's too many teams that hadn't heard it, so I'll say this. If Dobson was discussed, it was discussed in a specific case or two, or however many there was. There was one specific team or one specific player that the Islanders were looking at. If they had gone down that road, then Dobson might have been included. I think that's the fairest way to look at all of this. Again, it's the Islanders, so it's really hard to prove. I do think it's a possibility that he was offered up to a specific team, and I know a lot of people suspect that Vancouver. It makes a lot of sense. I just don't know it to be 100% true, but it's very logical, and the Islanders have certainly been looking for scoring. That's the one thing he has consistently said over the last few years. When he talks about the Islanders, he always says how much they're looking for scoring.
But we know that from the off seasons following Horvat. I believe the immediate off season after Horvat was the DeBrincat, or was that the full year after? But each year they went after DeBrincat the previous summer. This past summer, as Ethan noted, they went after Ehlers and Pinto. Every year they've tried, and as we keep saying, it's hard to get these deals done. There's 32 teams in the league and many teams after these players. So it's not as simple as want on Lou's end.
They've been looking for scoring since 2001.
Yeah, essentially. But this team, to me, really feels like it needs that one other marquee forward to have this, that if you have Barzal, Horvat, and one other player, let's say it was EP, and you knock everyone else down a rung, how much better does this forward group look?
Yeah, I mean, you're looking next year at a first line again, just spitballing here. Let's go Barzell, Horvat, Lee, Duclair, EP40, Nelson.
Yeah, that's the best top six we've had in
It's pretty
probably
good.
my lifetime.
And then you have Siplikov in the bottom six, assuming they
Yeah.
bring him back.
And he could play that role, which is nice with Siplikov.
Yeah.
He's that big body that could bang a bit. So he fits there. And I like that a lot about Siplikov, that he could kind of play up and down the lineup.
Shout out to Jack for getting all of this out of the typical Elliot Friedman word salad, which is also known as his
Yeah.
podcast.
Thank
So,
you, Greeny. That
very
is a
nice, very nice job, Jack. It's very coherent.
I actually appreciate that because it could be tough, and I wasn't sure anybody realized that. So
I think
you.
he gets paid by like the word. I'm convinced.
It's crazy, man. Like
By the question mark. I wonder if
I've heard,
Dude,
but I haven't heard.
every month or so, someone tweets out. There's like this meme. It's this.
Yep.
It's the Elliot
yeah,
Friedman.
I know
copy
exactly
pasta
what you're
meme.
talking about.
and I read it every time.
I fucking fall for it every time. I get through the first 3 to 4 sentences before I realize that this is a meme.
Shout
and
out to the people who set that up, because they
Yeah.
set it up well and get me every time. Or maybe
Yeah.
I'm just a moron. It could be that.
We're all stupid. That's fine. Okay, so we spoke about Brock and Dobson trade. Anything else on the trade deadline coming up, or corresponding moves or scoops that we missed that we want to discuss before we get into the mid-season awards?
Well, it's just, do you guys think that we're going to have a clear direction moving forward after the trade deadline? Or are we going to come on here and we're just going to be
No.
pissed off?
I think we're going to be pissed off regardless. And I think that who are the Islanders? Who's out there? Like, who is a potential trade target? The Islanders have quite literally the number one trade target. And unless they're going to go trade for EP40, which, again, there was this really specific offer, but Vancouver's hot. They could still make the playoffs now. They might make a run and revisit this scenario in the offseason. The Islanders, as currently constructed, are not good enough. So they should sell. But if Lou even wants to buy, who is there to buy? And what assets do you even have to offer? It's a really weird spot.
And I just checked their schedule because you were asking earlier, Rocco. So they have 6 games before the trade deadline. They only play 2 playoff teams. It's Dallas, the Rangers, Boston, Nashville, the Rangers again, and then Winnipeg, and then the trade deadline.
Yeah. Winnable games.
And we know as soon as they hold on to Brock Nelson, they'll then lose the next 4 games in a row immediately after the trade deadline.
An interesting nugget I was thinking about in regards to Brock too is, say we re-sign him to a 6.5. Wouldn't it be interesting if Lou then went, you know what, now I can move JGP because we have Brock locked in? Like, that's what I really wonder about, because I don't see Lou going full sell mode, but I do wonder if there's buying and selling, as we always discuss with this team every year, I feel like.
It's worth
I think it's
discussing.
It's
I
most
think-
logical this year to do
And
that.
I think it's valuable. Like, if we think about how Lou likes to operate in the draft, it feels like every year we're sitting there going, how did that guy fall? You know?
Right.
And if you're going to sell Palmieri and JGP, if you do a Brock extension, why not use those assets to trade back into the first round?
Right.
All of a sudden, you've now got 2 first-round draft picks. Either you can flip both of them for whatever help you're aiming for, or you just keep restocking the farm.
And
So
not
I
to
think
mention,
you're absolutely right.
not to mention on the JGP front, creates more cap room. So if you want to keep Brock and say, and Ehlers hits the open market and you have
Right.
all this cap room, you
Or
drop the
Marner.
bag on the table. And that's
Yeah.
that is actually one of the guys I could see them getting too.
Who,
don't know.
Ehlers?
Ehlers. If he hits the open market, I think they'll be very much in on him, because we know they had interest via trade.
Ton
So
of
imagine
interest.
the same player on the market after a big year, and the only asset he costs you is money.
With the cap going up, JGP gone, Palmieri
but
gone.
you need to. That's the thing. That's the thing I don't see talked about too often with the Brock stuff too. It has to be somewhat team friendly to allow them to go after that big fish in free agency or trade, because you're gonna
But again, that's
have a
the
big
respect
cap.
factor. That's the
Right. So let's hope.
here's the offseason plan. You either got to trust that I'm going to get it done, or
Or
see ya.
no, I agree 100%.
Okay. Mid-season awards. What did we have in mind?
Jack?
So we're gonna do MVP, biggest surprise, and biggest disappointment. So I actually think we should go around the table for each section instead of just like listing all three.
Yeah.
So what should we start with? Let's go from the bottom up. Let's go from disappointment all the way to the top. I guess I'll start.
There we go.
There you go, Jack.
My biggest disappointment is surprising, but it's actually Matt Barzell. He played 30 games this season and he had 20 points. Yeah, put your hands over your head. I don't care what you say. We have standards around here, don't we? We have the
All right,
worst
Josh
power
Bailey.
we have the worst power play in the National Hockey League. He was a point per game player last year, and simply it was just the eye test for me this season. And I was surprised he had 20 points in 30 games. I thought it was going to be more like 17, maybe 18. Oh yeah, I forgot. He scored his first few goals of the year on empty netters and a 5-on-3. He was disappointing this season. He didn't elevate the team enough. Yeah, like maybe you guys have rebuttals for it, but I just don't think he was good enough, man.
I think it's
Plain
fair.
and simple.
He was
Rocco,
a point,
you go.
he was a point per game player when he came back. Just saying.
Biggest disappointment for me is Dobson. I was hoping he would really, I don't know if take the steps the right word, because he did last year. He had 70, right? He had 70 points last year. So I was just hoping he could get back on that pace, maybe improve a little bit defensively, quarterback the power play. I feel like he's done none of those things. And, he did, have an unfortunate injury recently, but prior to that, as everyone probably knows by now listening to this pod, I'm not a huge fan. He's 6'4" for nothing. He doesn't hit anyone. He's afraid to body Kachuk on the
Go off,
6-on-5 when they need the puck back to try and score a goal. I don't love the player. You could show me every chart in the world. I'll stick with the eye test. Noah Dobson is the biggest disappointment.
Should we raise the banner for Barzell having a good month, as Greeny noted? Or can we continue the pod?
Well, I think Jack needed a new guy to latch on to when the Sorokin hate had to die down.
Amazing.
fair.
Amazing.
All right.
Ethan?
Well, my most disappointing can't be Noah Dobson because I was a hater last year. And I think every year we talk about how there are very obvious regression candidates, aka Brock Nelson, and there's always one on this team that you don't see coming. Maybe you should have seen it coming. This is one of those. We should have seen it coming. Casey Cizikas, absolutely miserable, almost unplayable to a certain point. It sucks to say, but he is cooked. He's finished. He's been my most disappointing by far, at least for like the standards that I had set in my head for each player going in.
Can't really argue with that. I'll go with another guy that was probably a washed candidate, Kyle Palmieri. I looked
Yeah.
at his stats. He actually has 16 goals. Like I was blown away just now looking at his stats. But if I can use the eye test just like Jack, I just don't really see it with him at this point. And I guess it was kind of expected. I just didn't expect it to be this big of a fall off this fast. I mean, it's just not.
He just had a 15 game goal drought. So in your defense, like he came out hot and then it really has plummeted.
Yeah, and like it's that middle stretch. He wasn't even noticeable. And even in years past when he wasn't scoring, he was at least around the puck winning battles and he was noticeable out there. This year I really haven't just seen him. So I'll go with him, but I guess we should have seen it coming.
Okay. Next award.
Biggest surprise. I'm gonna go with Maxim Siplikov, and the reason being, like I kept the expectations light going into the year. I was just hoping he can function in the top six, being in the NHL in his first season. He has 25 points in 51 games, and once again, it's just really the eye test. And I like how you can put him anywhere in the lineup. He's even played some good fourth line minutes with Gatcomb and McLean and looked really good there. He just goes about his business. He's been really impressive, and I hope we sign him long term.
He just has to stop taking penalties.
That's the one thing. Totally agree.
Rocco.
Oof. I feel like we're all gonna go with a lot of us are gonna go with Lee here, right?
Uh-huh. Yeah, that's what I
In
was
our
gonna
head.
go with.
So what's the technical award? Most improved or most surprising?
Most surprised.
All right, I'm actually gonna go wild card here for most surprised. I'm gonna go Marcus Hogberg because I think he's shown enough that he can be a true NHL backup, and I think we're gonna need that.
It's a good one.
Great
Love
pull.
that pick.
Great pull. I'll go with the obvious one then. Andrews Lee. He's going to pop 30 this year. Absolutely insane resurgence. Shout out to Adam Oates. I think that's all I got to say.
That's
And-
fair. Oh, go, Jack. Go.
No, keep going.
Your turn,
Well,
Green.
I was going to say Anders, but I'll switch and I'll actually. It's tough, but any three of the new defensemen that they brought in, actually, I've been very impressed with all three of those guys that they've brought in on short notice: Perunovic, D'Angelo, and Boebquist. It's kind of a cop-out answer, but they've all come in and fit in seamlessly and have actually given the team some mobility, a little juice on the back end. So I'll go with them. Kind of cheating, but whatever.
Also, for me, honorable mention Gatcomb. I feel like we all forgot about him. He's
Yeah.
been real nice since coming up too.
True.
The last one is our team MVP. Mine might be a surprise, but I'm actually going to go with the only defenseman that's played every single game this season. I'm going to go with Adam Pelech. I think that he's been thrown in with so many different players throughout this season, and he's just also turned back the clock a bit. I don't know how this is funny. I think this is a very fair take.
It's not what we're laughing at, Jack. Don't worry. Keep going, and then you'll check the chat, and then you'll figure it out.
Okay. I was like, all right, I guess yeah. Anyway, Pelech's been incredible this season. Turned back the clock defensively. Yeah, of course, he has his moments where he doesn't look so sharp, but for the most part, every game this season, I've just been really impressed with him.
Rocco.
Sorry. I'm gonna go with Anders Lee. I feel like, as basically what Ethan said in the last segment, the Adam Oates effect. I don't even know if "turn back the clock's" the right phrase here because he's looked better skating wise than maybe ever. He's playing great hockey, scoring goals, turn back the clock. I give Anders Lee the MVP so far.
I like that.
Okay.
I was also originally going to go with Anders, but we'll switch it up, and I'm going to go with
Oh,
the
that's
next.
great. I guess we're just going to skip me.
Oh, go ahead, Ethan.
Thought we were keeping
Sorry,
the same order for each fucking award. Unbelievable.
I was too
You're
busy. I was too
distracting-
busy laughing.
Yeah, exactly. Too
You
busy
guys really
distracting
threw me
everyone with
off
your-
there, by the way.
Greeny, producer Greeny.
It's
Bad
fine.
green room
This
moment.
is my fault.
Yeah.
It's just it's a bad stat.
Here's so sorry. Which one? Which
MVP.
award is this? MVP. I'm gonna piss off Mike. Ilya Sorokin, absolutely outstanding during the last month or so of hockey games. Just playing like not quite the best or the second best goalie, but like probably around 3 to 5 territory, probably. That's what my charts say, my personal charts say. So I'm gonna choose Ilya Sorokin as my MVP so far.
Proud, very proud. But I'm going to go with the future captain of the Islanders, Bo Horvat. He has been a horse all year.
Bo Horsevat always
Bo
has been, always
Horsevat,
will be.
or as our guys at Offside like to say, the slut bucket instead of Bo Horvat, which I think is hilarious. So, yeah, I mean, he's been unbelievable, and yes, he should be the next captain of the Islanders.
Okay. Are we good with the awards?
Believe
Yeah.
so.
Okay. Questions. Let's get to some. Oh, are we doing a green room? Do we have a green room segment this week?
We don't have a green room segment this
That's
week.
okay. We've been recording for quite a while anyway, so let's hit the questions and
Q&A.
then get out of here.
All right. So once again, a lot of questions. Thank you all for submitting. We had
We love
one,
most of you. I won't say
Yeah,
all
mo-
of you, but most.
yeah,
of you.
most of you. We had one
99%.
We had one pizza question since Rocco set Twitter ablaze earlier today with his plain cheese slice controversy.
can I-
You
even
didn't,
though they
you
like
didn't
to
even say the
stuff it.
right one, Greeny. Plain and cheese. You
It's a
missed
regular slice. It's a regular slice.
It is
Yeah,
a regular
yeah.
slice. Can I just please lay this out for the P brains out there? And
That's why I
Rocco,
brought it up.
let me just crusade this, and you can agree or disagree.
This
I
is
think
this
you're
is
gonna agree.
unbelievable that you are taking a hold of the pizza conversation, having worked 0 days in the business. But go ahead.
Really, it's shocking that I would have a
Versus me at
controversial
12
food
years-
take.
It's a food.
Yeah,
Versus
it's a
me at
food
12
take.
years old,
It's a
slaving in a
regular-
restaurant. Go ahead. You go. You
Okay.
you crusade this.
It is a regular slice. If you call it a cheese slice, you're not from New York. And what's the point of calling it a cheese slice? There is also sauce on it. You don't call it a sauce slice. The default of pizza is dough, sauce, cheese. Okay? Now, for the people who are calling it a plain slice, give it to me plain. That insinuates the existence of a slice that is defaulted, that is above dough, sauce, and cheese. So if you're asking for it plain, that means that in your fucked up brain, you think that the default pizza has more than just those 3 ingredients on it. All right? Regular pizza, yeah, give me a regular. What are you going to order? An irregular pizza? No. Regular pizza is just the base model. Dough, sauce, cheese. You order a regular slice. You don't order plain. You don't order cheese. That's it.
I mean, I got way more out of that than I originally thought when I brought it up. I'm so glad that I did that. But yes, it's a regular slice. Anyway,
Thank
back to the Islanders. This first
Well, does
question
Rocco agree?
yeah, Rocco. I mean, you're our Italian.
Oh, I could go now. Thank you, everyone, for the pizza.
Just defending
Comment.
your honor because I know what your answer is going to be.
Yes,
Sue me.
no. Regular guy, but contrary to Ethan, I will say I accept plain. Regular is the much more common. I don't have an issue.
I'll accept
If someone
plain.
comes in and says, "Can I get a plain slice?" There's no questions asked. There's no, "What are you talking about?" This and that. Regular, you know what it is. Our computer system at the restaurant says regular slice. When you click the button
Interesting.
to put an order in, it says regular. Just saying for all those that want to tell me one thing or another. I know. I mean, I'm the one that edits that, so obviously some bias there, but it does say regular slice because there was no thought of any
Forget
other
bias.
slice to
If the
put.
pizza guy says that it's regular, it's regular.
Okay, and then
Period.
cheese. I have a problem with cheese because cheese
Huge problem with cheese.
came up because of big pizza. So
Cheese
if
is
you're
an issue.
someone that not only says cheese, but you're on your high horse about it, you eat Domino's or you eat Papa John's
Yeah.
or you eat whatever other Little Caesars crap you want to bring to the table. I'm not buying it. I'm not eating it. And I don't want to hear it anymore. Okay? It's not cheese. And
You know what you should do? It's like, remember when you're in like school and you raise your hand, you go, "Oh, can I go to the bathroom?" And the teacher goes, "I don't know, can you?" Anytime
Right.
someone asks you for a cheese slice, you should just stare at them until they correct themselves.
or I should go through, well, we have 20 slices with cheese. Which one would you like?
Exactly. There you go.
Exactly. So no cheese.
Perfect.
Anyway, good conversation on Twitter
Yes.
today. I had a lot of fun with it. People are very passionate about it. I appreciate that.
And
So
most of them were wrong.
and I know
It's okay.
Jack, you're a regular guy too, correct?
Regular, yeah.
Regular, Greeny's a regular. So we agree on the pod. Tyler, I know, said regular. So
Yep.
5
All
for
right.
5, Isles House regular.
Yes.
Right.
Regular.
Back to our
Great.
regular scheduled programming of the New
Ooh.
York Islanders.
Ooh.
No, I liked it. It was fun. Anyway, this is from Jack at Jacked Up Isles. He says, "Oh, I clicked on the wrong one." This is actually from Joe Mama. Jacked Up Isles
Joe
just
Mama.
just said.
We love Joe Mama.
Jacked
love
Up
Joe
Isles
Mama.
just said, "Not a question. Love the pod." So
Thank
thank
you, Jack.
Thank you, Jack.
Thank you
Isles.
for that.
Appreciate that.
Now, Joe Mama at Explain B says, "How much did losing that last game in Minnesota change how they're going to approach the trade deadline?"
I think
the one game?
zero.
Yeah, I think
I
zero
think
too.
zero.
I think 0 based on both games because they were really, it's not like they got blown out of the building. They hit leads in both. They were competitive.
And
It's fucked up to say they're only 4 points out still.
And could we talk about, if not for Connor Hellebuck in the Winnipeg game,
Oh
the
my
Islanders?
God.
He was unbelievable in the third period. He robbed Zizekias.
Well, he's the best goalie in the league.
Yeah, but he just took over the game, and it's one of those situations where it's unfortunate. But I felt more of a need to tip the cap than cry about the loss at that point.
So
That was the best
frustrating.
I've seen them play in a loss in a year.
Yeah, I agree. They played really well against Winnipeg.
But I don't think it changes anything. Jack?
No, it doesn't change anything. And Hellebuck was incredible, man. Like I agree with both of you guys.
All right. Next question. This is from Brady Lyseth. If Brock is extended, would you prefer moving him to the wing as he ages?
Yes.
Great. Yeah, great
Yeah.
question. Yeah, absolutely. I think that's where he's going to live for the remainder of his time as a hockey player.
And his game translates really well to the wing, so I don't
Yeah.
think it's any issue.
Jack?
I think he'll be a center for probably 2 more seasons, and then he'll move off to the wing.
That's
All right.
fair.
I think
Yeah.
he's got a little bit left, and maybe he goes even to a third line center at one point.
And you can mix and match too, right? Like if you have Barzell, Horvat, him, and hopefully if you could get one other guy in there with them, you could sort of, depending on who you get, right? If you go and get an Ehlers, you keep Nelson at center probably. If you go and get a stud center, maybe you move him wing. It might be dependent on who is the next move after Nelson, to be honest.
100%. But it's never a bad thing to have too many centers, especially guys that can then move to the wing. It's always good to have that
If
versatility.
the Islanders trade for EP40, they'll have 4 centers in their top 6.
Wouldn't be mad at that at all.
No.
All right. Next question. This is from Jack Anton at Emerald Isles 43. Our 3 new defensemen have shown that the Islanders don't have to overpay to get quality defenders. Assuming that Mayfield, Pollock, Dobson are all healthy by the trade deadline, who should Lamoriello look to move to get the best return? I think we know it would be Dobson, but do we think the other 2 defenders should be potential targets?
Who is it? Mayfield and Pollock?
Yes, Mayfield, Pollock, and
Well,
Dobson.
Pullock, I don't know. I don't think he's going to be healthy. I think Pullock's a very good trade candidate for the offseason. I've been saying this with regards to both him and Pellick for, I think, a full year now, where their no trade clause goes to modified starting the new league year in the summer. So I would absolutely be looking to move off one of them. I mean, like Jack said, Pellick has sort of turned back the clock a bit this year. I've been very pleasantly surprised. I'd probably look to move Pullock off, get that, was it 5.5 million off the books. Mayfield, I don't think is going anywhere. Dobson, everyone knows my opinions there, but that's my answer. More of an
Pollock's-
offseason.
I feel like they missed their chance to cash in like a nice return on Pollock. I don't know what that might look like over the summer, but Dobson will definitely fetch you like the nicest return. And none of us on this podcast see him as a number 1. Some people do.
I don't even see him as a number 2.
Yeah, I would try and trade Dobson, but we'll see what happens.
It still bothers me that they didn't trade Mayfield like 2 years ago and
Not
they
me.
extended him. I
agree. I agree with you, Greeny.
it just like I understand why they like it optically they couldn't really do it, but that was such a missed opportunity.
The only time though we've complained about Mayfield is when he broke his foot and played the whole season injured. Like
You're
he's been
right.
pretty good.
Last year wasn't fair to judge him off of because, as we found out at the end, I think he broke it in game 1 too, right?
Yeah,
he
it was
so
opening
That's
night.
injured.
insane. That's insane that he just kept playing on that.
Well,
I give
and
him
yeah,
all the credit for it.
I actually fought Lane for that, who kept rolling him out there for like the next month, a month and a half until they finally called it quits.
Yeah. But I think sometimes it's the player that's pushing it, and it's hard to, when you don't have a true replacement, I think it's hard to take a veteran like Scotty Mayfield out unless there's someone waiting in the wings that you kind of say.
I guess it's true because they didn't get Riley until after he was
Right.
already.
He came on waivers way later.
Oh, you're right. All right, should we do 2 more?
Sure.
All right, this one is from MF Isles at Circustan 2. If Pajot were to be traded, what do we think that return would look like?
I don't know, Jim.
I don't know, Jim.
I think if they don't eat any money,
That's the thing.
maybe a second
about
plus if they don't eat money. If they try to, which I almost think is the right move, just to try, if you want to get him off the books, try to get him all the way off the books so you could take a big swing this summer. So I would think if you don't eat the money with the rising cap, maybe like a second plus, second and a prospect. Because
I don't know, man. I think you can.
I
I
think
would
teams
settle
would
for
love him.
I would settle for a late first. I mean,
I think
it's
it's
going
got
to
to
be
be a first.
It's a weak trade market. If
No,
you eat 50%,
But you got to keep in mind, Ethan, with the team trading for him, they also have to fit him next year. So
yeah,
that's a bit of an obstacle. Depending on the team. Maybe there's a team, who would be a good fit off the top of my head? Columbus, because they have miles of cap room and need that sort of
that's a great idea.
leadership, Swiss Army knife type player, veterans, show the young guys how to be professional. I know they loved him in Ottawa for that. Just off the top of my head, that would be a really nice fit.
Great idea. I like that.
I think right now, if you don't eat any salary, you probably get a second for Pajot. But if you eat like half the salary and you retain, you can definitely get a first for him. He's
First
so
plus,
valuable.
I think.
Yeah.
Such a valuable playoff player.
And I think he's the one guy I'd be fine if they were really holding out to try and get a first round pick.
Yeah, I'd be fine with that too. But I mean, when you really take a step back and think about it, when you picture him on certain teams, how valuable he'd be. Like I picture him on a Colorado, how valuable he would be. A Dallas, a Winnipeg, like all these teams that are competing for the top. I don't know if Florida has the room. Imagine him with Florida. Or not that we would want to trade him there, but Carolina. He'd be such a little pest in Carolina.
I think he'd be
There's
really
so many
good
good
for them.
fits.
really good on Dallas actually as like a consolation prize if they can't get like a Brock Nelson or someone at the top like that.
Right. And they did trade for Granlund, I think, right?
Yeah, but he does. I think he's like a completely different type of player.
No, he's more
right?
like offensive. I don't think he
Yeah.
says two-way, but yeah, if they could, and I think Sagan's on LTIR, so I think they have a ton of room. So
And
yeah, that would be-
Heiskanen also, I think.
But I think Heiskanen kind of might come back where I'm pretty sure Sagan had a serious surgery. So I think he might be done. I don't know if they could even pull a Vegas on the Sagan situation.
I hope it's interesting scenario. All right, let's wrap it up with one of our favorites, the iconic Mike at Dino Dangle.
Oh Lord.
Yes. So he starts off by saying, I already asked a question to Ethan, my man of the hour, but I'm going to ask the rest of the group. If you guys could pick one forward to get back for Dobson that's not Jordan Kyrou or not EP40, who would it be?
That wasn't the full question.
Or one of one of the UFA targets. If we're going to be trading, well, I guess
Dobson, who would you want back other than the? That's
Yeah.
tough because who's out there?
If you could pick one forward to get back for Dobson that's not Kyrou Pedersen, oh, got it. Okay, or not one of the UFA targets. So it would have to be, who's
We don't
available?
know. That's tough.
So all right, let's just assume that it's someone. Let's just assume everyone's available.
pick a good
Like-
player on a different team.
But like someone realistic. Like obviously
Build the
McDavid's
package
not
around.
going anywhere. Yeah.
Trying to think of like the lower level teams that might move a forward. That's really nice. Oh, I got one.
I got one.
You go first, Ethan.
Let's say it on 3.
One.
1, 2, 3.
Rossi.
Okay.
Who did you say? I didn't hear you.
Ottawa.
No, that one.
No,
Brady.
the player.
Yeah,
Oh,
Brady
Brady.
Kachuk.
Oh,
Oh, I was like,
Bring Brady
Yeah.
back to America.
no, I would love that. But I was going what I felt was like I could see, and I've heard this from a couple of people, not super recently, but prior that I don't know, for as good as Rossi's been in Minnesota, there's a lot of guys rumored to be potentially going to Minnesota, whether it's Brock Nelson, Brock Besser, whomever. And I heard they do not really want to give Rossi a big time, long, high AAV deal at this moment. So if they hit a crossroads, I think that's someone who could come up on the trade block in the summer, not now. I don't think he's going to get traded now. And I think that would be a pretty interesting trade because Rossi's a really good player. Maybe, odd man out in Minnesota when the time comes. And Dobson, I think he could help a lot there. I don't know if he's the best fit. That was just a player off the top of my head, but I'll go with Rossi. And obviously the vowel at the end doesn't hurt.
I got a really interesting one for you guys.
I doubt it's as interesting as mine, but go ahead.
Well, Brady Kachuk, yeah, that's not happening. So, okay. There's no chance.
Okay, hold on. Let's revisit this. How old is Elias Patterson?
26?
Okay, Brady Kachuk, 25. What's Brady Kachuk's cap hit? 8.2 for 3 more years. What's Elias Pettersson's cap hit? 11.6 for another 8.
Can you explain to me why Ottawa's getting rid of him?
Because he wants to come to America. We're talking about, we don't even know who's available in this fucking scenario. Greeny.
Coming to
We're just
America
throwing
3?
shit at the wall. Okay, yeah. So his brother just forced his way to America. Maybe Brady wants to come back to America. He's got a lower cap hit and term than Elias Pettersson. He's, I don't know, probably not as good as EP. He's a left wing versus a
Different
center.
style.
Like,
Different style.
it doesn't matter. Different.
No, in a good way. Physical.
You could probably listen if
Who
Dobson's
would you
gonna
rather
go.
have, EP or Brady?
Oh, I'd rather have EP.
Who would you, Ethan? I might go.
Yeah,
You guys know I love EP. I might go Brady just because he's
style.
the playoffs. Like you see what Matthew Tkachuk did in Florida. I know, they're brothers. It's not
I want
always
a
fair,
fucking
but
rat.
he's literally bigger than Matthew, and he's a rat.
Yeah.
Wait, but can I give mine?
Yeah.
No. Can we just acknowledge how great of an answer mine was?
Maybe.
Would be pretty good.
Thank you. Okay, go ahead, Greeny.
Clayton Keller.
I love that one, but I don't think Utah would move him.
He's been a current future Islander for years.
Yeah.
26, a couple years left on his deal, 7.1. It's Utah. Like,
Dobson would kind of fit in Utah, I feel like.
it would. It kind of
he's a
would.
fucking wiener.
And you're saying Brady Kachuk's going to force his way to the States. Clayton Keller's going to force his way out of Utah. Put up with Arizona and Utah. He wants to go to a real place.
Welcome to Long Island.
I might have to start a new narrative.
You know
Jack,
that mine was a
I'm
good
having
answer.
trouble, honestly.
It's
I'm having
hard
trouble with this
because you
one.
don't know who's out there.
Let me
Yeah.
ask you guys.
I thought mine was the most realistic, if you will.
Let me
Can we
ask-
just give it up for Mike? What a great question.
Good
great
question.
Mike.
Shout out, Mike.
In depth, good questions from Mike pretty frequently, I feel like.
There was a lot more. I feel like there was more noise around it before Montgomery got fired, but wasn't there a little bit of buzz that Pasternak can be moved?
That was before the extension, no?
I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah, you see, both guys I was thinking have already been extended. I was thinking of Pasternak. I was thinking of Travis Konechny from the Flyers. He's cousins with Horvat, I think.
Yep.
And he would be such a good winger for us, man.
Imagine Dobson with Torts, Jack.
Oh God.
No, I think I'd buy season tickets and travel to Philly. I wouldn't be able to miss that, man.
Well, you
Oh
want to
my
go to
God.
Bridgeport. Philly's pretty easy.
That would be a dream come true. Oh my God. Oh man. Travis Konechny, Pasternak, like those two guys were rumored to be out there, but I mean, you guys really said anyone that's like,
You know what's
Yeah, I have a
interesting?
wild
too?
card.
Sidney Crosby.
I have a wild card.
Go ahead.
So the Predators fucking suck. And
Philippe.
God knows what they're doing. Philip Forsberg's 30 years old and I think has like 4 years left. And you just don't know what a team in that situation is going to do. So that would be like someone that I would try to go after.
Interesting one.
It would tell you a lot of what Barry thinks of Dobson if he was to pull that
Yeah.
sort of thing off.
Yeah, although Barry's track record this offseason, not so great.
Not so great.
I'm sorry.
No, the other thing I was just going to say quickly to Ethan's pick, that's the one interesting thing about potentially being a seller too, is that if you start taking in all these assets, it's only a matter of time before the next guy, whether that be Brady Tkachuk or Tage Thompson
Yeah.
or whomever, needs a change of scenery or is done losing or something
you,
goes
you
on.
sell off Pajot for a first, you sell off Brock for a first
Right,
and a
and you have
prospect. All of
all
a sudden
these
you've got
assets.
3 first-round picks and whatever else is needed.
And you could
Yeah,
go be the
dude.
Florida in that situation.
Yeah.
And you know what? Tage Thompson's actually interesting. You brought him up, Rocco.
Yeah,
I
we should
know.
have someone
I
should
don't-
have said Tage.
Yeah, but I think he's happy. Like, for as bad as they are, I think both Brady and he are a year or two away from where they might approach management and say, "Hey, I'm kind of done here." Because
Hey, but you know what?
What?
Tage has good
Brent.
old Brent Thompson in his ear talking up how great Long Island is. You know, job security is not going to be an
Yeah.
issue if he comes here.
Yep.
Yeah. No, listen, I'd love Tage. He's a freak. He's huge. He's a great player, but I don't think he's at that point yet. But as we said, it wouldn't be the worst thing to get all these assets to set up for something like that.
You're not wrong. Exactly. Like you want to have some money in the bank for.
And that's where, when we said before early in this podcast, the way to become a contender is by gaining all these futures, and the futures don't actually always have to be used on the draft picks.
No.
They could be part of a haul
You
to
flip
another
'em.
team, or even this. Someone like, you move a Palms for a second. Who's to say you don't flip that second in the offseason for a player that helps now that's a bit younger? It creates flexibility, and I think that's what this team needs this offseason is flexibility.
I just saw this on Twitter. Did you guys see the picture of Team USA with the 1980 Miracle on Ice team?
Was the whole
No,
team
I
or
guess-
like a couple
I guess
players?
there's some of them. They're all having dinner, and I see Brock Nelson. You know what Brock Nelson's sitting next to at this table? Jacob
think I saw-
Slavin. Jacob Slavin.
That son of a bitch.
So you know what? This is Ethan's shtick with the breadcrumbs, but maybe Brock to Carolina
It could be Slavin just saying, "You're still in my pocket, buddy. You're not moving."
or that. Probably more realistic. But yeah, that's all the questions.
Cool. All right, let's wrap it up. Guys, thank you for sticking with us. It's been a fun season so far. We're looking forward to taking you home. Follow us on Twitter. You know the handles. Follow Isles House. Subscribe. You know the drill. If you made it this far, thank you. And we'll talk to you guys when? I don't know. Probably after Four Nations. Okay. Talk to everyone soon.
Father wears his Sunday best. Mother's tired, she needs a rest. The kids are playing up downstairs. Sister's sighing in her sleep. Brother's got a date to keep, he can't hang around. Isles House in the